still talking about food safety, and you're glad that you're still with us. This is AM Live Plus. Now, as we were talking about food safety, a lot of concerns come up about food safety, both on the farmer's side and on the consumer's side. And most of the times, if I start from the Ministry of Health perspective, most of the time the consumer side of the food safety ends up contaminating me. I only know that I've handled unsafe food when I fall ill. What is it that I'm doing that is making me ill?
Thank you very much, Zainab. We need to appreciate that food safety is a shared responsibility. There is what the regulator, that is the government, is supposed to do.
Yes.
And the business operator, or rather the private, that is the industry, what they are supposed to do. And then lastly, the role of the consumer. As a consumer, there is what you are supposed to do in order to play your part with respect to food safety. Take, for example, the manufacturer has already given instructions on how you are going first to store or use a specific food product.
Yes.
It is expected of you to ensure that you follow the instructions of the manufacturer as they are in the label. In addition to that, further, you are supposed to ensure you follow basic principles with respect to food safety. Let me take, for instance, whereby you get even in your own kitchen that you have handled food in a manner that you have contaminated it, and you find that you become ill upon consumption of this. We usually say that always you ensure that you observe just 5 principles. You keep it clean, and you separate both raw and cooked food. And if you have to cook, you cook it thoroughly. And always store your food in safe temperatures. Safe temperatures, you are avoiding that temperature zone which is prone to microbial attack. And lastly, you have to ensure that you use safe material and clean water.
You've mentioned there the manufacturer's label, following the manufacturer's label. But KEBS will tell you manufacturers don't always tell the truth. So I, as a consumer, when I've gone to buy this product, maybe let's take, for example, it's a packet of milk. I'm going to buy this milk product. There's all the instructions of the milk on the label. I don't know what the farmer did to that cow in the field. Maybe Dr. Ochondo will tell us what farmers are doing out there. Ochondo there will tell us what farmers are doing there in the field. I don't know what the farmer has done. KEBS will just look at those instructions that the manufacturer has put there. I will trust that KEBS has looked at that milk and certified it as safe. But we've also seen that from the stories even we as the media have done, we've taken some of these products, we've tested them, and sometimes they don't feel satisfied the safety. So when you say manufacturers, should we really put our faith in the manufacturer labels?
I mean, it's the communication channel between the consumer and the product. And that is key, because at times food safety depends on you handling and utilizing the food according to the intended purpose. So if, for example, there is some sausages in the cold chain in the supermarket and it's clearly written there, this is raw, the expectation is that you as the consumer will go and cook it before the consumption, because there could be certain hazards that the next step, which is cooking, is going to manage. So you need to be very keen on what the label says, and the labels do not just happen to be on the packaging. There are standards, or a standard has been established to really guide on how labeling is supposed to be undertaken. So the obligation really is for this manufacturer to make sure that this particular product that I'm putting out there to the consumer to partake.
So you want the manufacturer to look at their own value of humanity and good sense of knowing what is safe and what's not.
Correct. It is a big obligation that they undertake. When you step into a food production system, you really have to know what really is at stake here. You are talking about human and even environmental health. So, and you are not roping in the dark, because standards have been established for you to actually follow. So, of course, the regulators do their part in following up to or doing the verifications that things are going on the way they're supposed to be. But that does not mean sometimes the bucket will leak.
Now let's talk specifically about fresh food.
Yes.
The bulk of the food that Kenyans eat is in the informal system, and that's where the regulators are not. Godfrey works directly with farmers, and I know the fresh produce industry has had a lot of challenges with especially the minimum residues, the maximum residues of pesticides and all. If you look at the picture behind you, on the screen behind you, that's a whole lot of vegetable and fruit. When I go to the market, it all looks nice and it all looks juicy. So I'm relying on Godfrey and yourself and the Ministry of Health to have confirmed to me that that vegetable is safe for me to consume. Yet, again, we know a lot of, some of it is grown on sewage, some of it has more pesticide than it should. How are the three of you ensuring that by the time that food hits the market, it's safe for me to eat? Maybe Godfrey, you could tell us what you're doing with the farmers currently.
Yeah, thank you. And as I alluded in my beginning statements, that what MESP through this Agrify EU-funded program, of course through DANIDA, is doing is building systems. You know, systems are sustainable. And we recognize that because ours is value chain approach, we recognize that even before you go to the processing, this production must have started from at the point of you know, soil, water, and all those kind of things that are very critical to the production of the final product. And number two, what as MESP we now believe is that production is done at the county level. And we have a gap where the implementing agency are largely national. And with the new devolved dispensation, and where again Dr. Chodo talked about coordination, what this program is doing is to bring that link, that critical link between the national, the regulator, and the production systems at the county level.
Yes.
And what this program has done on level one, it has brought together all these agencies and formed a very key institution at the county level, just like the ones he talked of, MNCP program, which we call the County Food Safety Committees. And these County Food Safety Committees bring together all the agencies, those ones that are concerned with production and those ones that are concerned in looking at the food when now it's getting to the table, like public health. Because public health has the mandate to enforce. But we have other agencies, Ministry of Agriculture, which has got extension system. So what the program has done is to look at those institutions, build them, and be able even to look at the legislative gaps that exist to be able to institutionalize those units to support food safety within counties. And then level two, where he's also talking about the problem could be, and where I said in production in Kenya, it doesn't put in the moral aspect. People produce for the market. They don't care what kind of food that goes out there.
Yeah.
So to be able to achieve that, we have a new model that we are inventing, the ETIVET model. And the ETIVET model, what we have done is to borrow it from the TVET system, where you have the TVET model, where we have polytechnics. When a child goes to train tailoring, again, I explained that before. When that child comes out of that institution, if you give that child a sewing machine, everybody will trust that this child or this person or this trainee will be able to do the trade.
Yes.
You can give the person your clothes,
yes,
trusting that it will be done well.
Yes.
So we are saying we need to change the way agriculture is also done, that we have to start looking at it as a profession, because currently the way we have, even if I'm let's say like I'm a pastor and I feel I'm bored in doing evangelization, I can go to agriculture, Google some material and go and train farmers and create even confusion. So what this program is doing is saying that let agriculture be a profession and managed by people who know what it is, so that what the program has done is to develop a curriculum a standard curriculum, so that people are not just going there and Googling material and training farmers and creating all this kind of, and we have reviewed curriculum for 4 value chain currently and approved by TVET CDAC, and we are going to anchor that curriculum at the 13 ATC because we are trying to demonstrate a case. And in this 13 ATC, by anchoring these, we want farmers to link the private sector players to those ATCs.
So you're currently only working with TVETs?
We are currently working with TVETs. We are introducing agriculture component in the TVET.
The TVETs curriculum.
Yeah, so that the agriculture component, now we can have farmers being trained, having the right competencies, having the right skills, and having the right behavior, the attitude part that is creating the biggest challenge.
How many farmers have you been able to reach so far? In the counties that you're working with? Yeah, in terms of program, we have already done the first things, the development of curriculum, and we have already set up the 13 TVETs in the 13 counties of focus. And now this year is when now we are zooming in, and we are hoping that by the end of the program we'll have trained 13,000 value chain actors, or food business operators, if you want to call them so, who will be very critical in championing this food safety agenda in the country. And now that's how we are aligning again with the SEC program that is being run by the Danish government, because they are the one who started this coordination at the national level. But now the Agrify program is zooming in at the county level, because at the national level there's no production that happens. The production is at the county. Okay, Dr. Chodo, let's talk a bit about the meat and the milk industry. If you look at, we have about, do we have enough inspectors first, before I ask you the next question, do we have enough inspectors? I think we have about 500 against all the many slaughterhouses we have. Do we have enough inspectors to actually certify the meat to eat?
Thank you. We do not have enough inspectors, and we can never have enough inspectors. Because saying you have enough inspectors means that you have an inspector for every point where the meat is handled before it reaches the consumer. Because the inspector is actually supposed to take care of that safety. And that realization that we cannot have enough inspectors is what has given rise to the new thinking that we are talking about under our multi-annual national control plan. And we are having a revolution in the food safety in Kenya. And this revolution is moving the control of food from the inspector to the food business operator. And the food business operator is at 3 levels. We have the production level, where you have the farmers that Godfrey has been talking about. Then we have the processing level, where you have the industry. And then we have the distribution level, where you have the markets, be they supermarkets, retail, or wholesale. So the 500 or 1,000 inspectors that we are having, we don't want to say they are enough or not enough, because we have learned that we cannot have enough inspectors.
So it's not
it's not about inspectors, it's about the change in approach. And this is what we want the consumers and the food business operators, the farmers, distributors outside there to know, that we have decided as a government and the 10 or 12 institutions involved in food safety to change our approach, where we control the product or the food to controlling the food business operator. And that can be the farmer, the distributor, or the processor. And the way we are going to control that food business operator is to educate him or her on the requirements of production, the requirements of processing, the requirements of distribution. We have standards produced by the Kenya Bureau of Standards together with us. Then we make regulations and laws. We are going to create awareness among the consumers on the various laws we have. We have quite a number of them. The Public Health Act, for example, the Food, Drugs, and Chemical Substances Act. These are the laws we need to be talking to our food business operators about. And once they understand what we want them to do in those regulations, then it will be their business to enforce that. And it will be our business to ascertain that they are enforcing. That way, we can have one inspector covering a wide spectrum.
But you know, Daktari, Kenyans do not read.
Yes.
Even things as simple as the Traffic Act, we don't read.
You don't read.
So how do you expect people to actually read this law? And I ask that because you're focusing your attention, you said, on the operators, but my concern mostly is the farmers.
Yes.
I will slaughter chicken in my house.
Yes.
I will slaughter a cow in my house. I will milk my 1 or 2 houses in my home. I will consume that milk in my home. Previously, we had extension services, which could reach me with my 1 cow or my 2 cows, and they would be able to assess whatever food safety concerns I may have or whatever illnesses my cow may have. But with the onset of devolution, that service seems to have dwindled. And when you say you're focusing your attention on the food operators, you're cutting off this farmer down here who does not have that extension service anymore. So how are you reaching this particular farmer?
Yeah, the farmer is not cut off. And we know Kenyans don't read. So what we are going to do is to read for them. Meaning, we are going to sit with them in a workshop, under a tree, if it's that farmer, even in his home, and enlighten them on these standards, on these regulations, so that they know what they are supposed to do. And it's not necessarily in English, it will be in their languages.
So these are workshops that have not happened yet?
Yeah, this is something we are just beginning to do. And what we are also going to do is to make sure that we know our farmers, what Godfrey is doing. He's talked of 13,000. We have about 4 million of them in this country, if you look at crops and livestock. We are going to go down there and list them, know them. And once we have known them, we ask them if they want to be farmers. They say yes. Then we now take them through the laws, the regulations, the standards. And at the end of it, we shall give them some kind of document to show that they have attended or learned what they are supposed to do. Now from there, we shall come in to be, just checking that they are enforcing those standards.
So you'll be able to go to their homes?
Exactly. Not really their homes. We can bring them to places where we congregate them. In agriculture, we are also encouraging farmers to form groups. They could be common interest groups. They could be cooperatives or so on, where we can approach them as a group. And that is what we are doing under this program with the Danish government, the Strategic Sector Cooperation Program. We have started that pilot in Nyandarua, where we are working with 2 dairies
Yes.
to tell them exactly what they are supposed to do. And we have a horticulture group also
Henning
that we
had
are working with.
too.
Yes, and that is the approach that we want now, so that these farmers are enlightened, and then we move from controlling the vegetables, controlling the milk, and so on, to just doing some spot checks on the farmer, on the retailer, and so on, so that if you put in medicines in animals, you are supposed to observe the conditions that will give you the withdrawal periods. You don't sell. If you spray your tomatoes and you don't sell them the following day, and so on, all these things. You talked about growing food in sewage. We'll tell you all these things, so that, because the laws are there even today, it's only that people are not using them. So we'll change our approach. We'll not read our laws and try to, enforce them ourselves. We'll read them to the people who are producing, and then hold them accountable.
Yes, Henning had something to say.
Yeah, I completely agree, but just maybe a small add-on also to your own comment about the informal sector, and you say the regulators are not there.
Yes.
And of course they're there. They should be. The law is for everybody, also in Kenya. And of course it's a bigger task, it's more difficult, but what Charles is talking about in the revolution and the change of the approach of controlling food, it's a whole new education also of inspectors. So of course you try and make guideline and explain to the food business operators, from the farmer to the processor or the retailer, but mainly the inspector's new approach should be to ask the food business operator how they know their own risk. They should know their own risk. You don't need to read and write to know the risk of how you handle milk coming from the cow. They all know about mastitis and so on. So maybe they don't take action on it, and then you are told by the regulator this is not supposed to happen. You have to know, and that also counts for the street vendor when he uses a dirty knife and so on. It looks like a really, really huge problem, but with the change in attitude, it is a big problem, but also a big task to turn around. But with the change of principles that we also follow in Europe, that the FBOs, they have to account for their risk, and they have to know how to comply with them.
Yes.
The one thing is to train and explain and so on by the regulators, but there is a risk if the regulator tells how things should be done,
Yes.
and you come back and it has not been done, then they will say, you told me how to do it, and now it's wrong. And that's why we have to put the responsibility for how to make the improvements and make safe food has to be on the food business operator. And then if they don't comply, and then of course there is an interaction with the authorities.
You know, the concern from a consumer point of view and also from a journalist point of view, the concern for many Kenyans is that these food safety concerns will always be there. The media will blow the whistle on a food safety issue somewhere,
Sure.
and then the regulator will instantly react, as if this regulator was just waiting for this media report to draw attention to this food safety concern. And then the regulator will look like they're trying to do something. They will issue memos and letters and whatnot, and that story dies. So they don't come back to me as a consumer to tell me, this was the concern, this is how we addressed it, you should not see it again. From the Ministry of Health, let's just look at the issues that have come up in the last few weeks. Even milk, there's always concerns about aflatoxin in milk. Which ones have you addressed so far, and why hasn't feedback been given to the consumers yet?
Okay, thank you. With the respect to the role of the Ministry of Health on food safety, is that we are so central to food safety. And for your information, the government has a mechanism on how to coordinate all these regulators. We have a National Food Safety Coordinating Committee, which is chaired by the Secretary of Agriculture, while the Director of Public Health provides the Secretariat for that. And for example, Kenya Bureau of Standards, Director of Veterinary Services, and other regulatory agencies are members in that. In a nutshell, what we are trying to look is how shall we get coordinated so that we can be able to synergize and address some of these challenges. For example, you will find that of late you have not had a lot with respect to aflatoxin outbreak. It doesn't mean that we have been able to say no to aflatoxin because it's a natural contaminant. It has to be there to the soil. The thing is trying to maintain the levels. But we have ensured that as a national government, with respect to the Ministry of Health, capacity building has been done.
Yes.
We have done capacity building to both the food business operator and other value chain actors. Not we alone. I'm not a specialist. I'm not an agronomist. I'm not a specialist agronomist. The agriculture will play that part.
Okay.
There is the role which will be able to play. And therefore, by turning the approach to ensure that the person, the miller, for example, who is milling, is knowing that it is my responsibility to ensure that whatever I churn out is safe. And the government has given you the documentations, whether the standards, whether the knowledge, for you to ensure that. It's upon you when the regulator comes to demonstrate to the regulator, because that is what I'll be coming to inspect. How are you ensuring that whatever you're producing is safe? I want to see your documentation. How have you put your procedures? For example, on receiving the maize, I look into this and this and this and this. This is how I'm going to store. This is a time I will reject. So it's upon that I'll now critique as a regulator and say, oh, you're doing this, but I'm not convinced on this. Can we go further? And in that, you'll find in some of the manufacturers have been able to comply. Let me give you an instance whereby we used to have challenges with our exports to Tanzania with respect to use of food additives.
Yes.
Like colors, sweeteners, and all that. But we came to realize, actually, the food business operator does not know. So we had a sitting with the Kenyan Association of Manufacturers, and we told them, bring all of them on the table. And we discussed with them. We took them through the general standard for food additives.
Okay.
Since then, we have never had any issues with respect to our exports, because they knew, hopes, it's my responsibility. And now they started using the food additives with respect to the standard.
Do you think that within your community, within your committee, the food safety committee, do you think you're giving the consumer enough information? Because from what you're saying, it sounds like there's a lot happening, but the consumer is not necessarily aware of what you're doing. Do you think you've put in enough mechanism to ensure this information goes back to the consumer?
For the information going to the consumer that information is given from both levels of the government, both from the national government and again at the county governments.
Okay.
Because remember, it's the counties is where the rubber is meeting the road. That is where the actions are. And MACU also, we do technical backstopping to the county government whenever there is a challenge. They may have a challenge with respect to specific new ways of doing things or implementation of a standard. And that has been done. With respect to the education of consumer, yes, we are trying as much we can to ensure that we pass this information, and also the county governments, they do the same. Okay. So that the consumer is informed.
Okay. Now, this conversation is getting very interesting, but at some point you're going to have to take a quick break and cut to another event shortly. But before we do that, Godfrey, if I go to, you know, in the rural areas and in the counties, they don't have this big what are they called? Big dairies. They have those two local dairies. If I go to that local dairy, what, as a consumer, and I'm standing at the counter even before I order my milk, what are the food safety concerns I need to look out for?
Yeah, in terms of food safety, as a program, I think our focus is mainly building systems. And we are building on what the Central Competent Authority, who are the experts, to be able to determine what are the key risks in the value chain. So what we are doing in terms of the program, and where we talked about capacity building of the value chain actor, and also building up on what the SEC program has been doing, establishing a clean hub, is that we are working with cooperatives and groups within county and supporting counties even to come up with associations that can loop in quite a number of people, and also supporting the whole inspection system by building the capacity of the regional inspectors to be able to support county government, investigate and see where the risks are, so that the county government can start investing their resources towards eliminating some of those contaminants you are talking about, let's say like in milk. Maybe one key thing that we are doing as a program is supporting the county government to do tests in various value chains of focus, and out of those tests that will be done by the Central Competent Authority, we will be able to establish the status of each value in those value chains in each county.
Sorry, I need to interrupt you.